If you do understand, I'm happy. So let's talk about the OCS again. So it is a simulated kind of exam that does reflect real life. So in other words, it will be answering questions as you would in real life. Okay, so we'll talk about that. I'll take you through a document around what you're expected to do in the particular exam, but it combines your theory or your knowledge from your, I shouldn't say theory, your knowledge from your E1, P1, and F1, and that with the information that's provided in the pre-seen and what we call the unseen. Okay, the unseen, or sometimes called the trigger, will be new information that you get on the day of the exam. So this could be in the form of a memo, an email, pop up on the internet, something, or notes from a previous meeting, which asks you or provide some form of big background to maybe something that's prevailing. Take a classical example. Maybe we're looking at launching a new product. Let's look at Thread Kushi. Let's say you're looking at launching a smart shoe. And you're doing some background work before you can actually understand what it would mean for us to get to launch a smart shoe or smart athletic shoe. So technically a running shoe with connected technology that allows us to read what happens as you run, as an example. And then it would obviously provide background to that being a potential decision that the company is about to make, and you'll then need to answer questions related to that. For example, it may say, what costs do we need to consider, and so forth. So the unseen then will be basically new information that is presented to you on the day of the exam. On the day of the exam, there are 5 different papers, so we call them variants. So each variant will kind of take a theme and kind of continue with that theme. So one of the themes may be that we're looking at launching new products. One of the themes may be that we're looking at entering a new market. One of the themes may be that we start a new project, slightly different project. You'll see a lot of the pre-seen as we go through it tomorrow, talks about sustainability and sourcing of natural products that are really good in terms of the environment. There may be something along those lines talking about things like corporate social responsibility, which will break down in the course of tomorrow. But that's just to highlight what the unseen could possibly be. So what is going to be required from you in this exam is then to bring together the pre-seen information, the new information that's presented to you, the knowledge and skills underlying techniques from your different subjects, E1, P1, and F1, and using all of that information to write or to prepare answers, in actual fact, to write answers to the questions that are asked by either your manager or whoever the stakeholder is. And what's important and what's highlighted over and over again is that the examiners do not want you to write about everything you can remember about that particular topic. Obviously, the leading paper for this exam, as you'll see, is I take you through the blueprint, which I'll talk about in a minute. The leading paper here tends to be P1. So a lot of the models, a lot of the knowledge, a lot of what you're going to need comes out of P1. So when you look at your study plan over the next couple of weeks, it needs to be kind of, the balance between E1, F1, and P1 needs to be disproportionately towards P1, because that's where the bulk of the questions are going to come from. Why? Because this body is Chartered Institute of Management Accounting, so it's management accountants. So we're dealing with management accounting most of the time. Okay, so if I were to sum up the exam itself, then it's really around the concept of spending a day as a finance officer. You may be a finance officer already, so it may be relatively easy for you to understand. What the examiners hate are people that dump knowledge from the study text. In actual fact, I always say try and avoid copying or remembering stuff from your course book and really relating it in the exam as you recall it from the textbook, because then you're going to start sounding like the Terminator, really. Okay, so one, you're not going to be relevant to this, to the question that's asked. You're going to be going on a tangent about everything that you can remember about the topic. So use your own words. There are no marks for remembering the definition of what absorption costing is in the way that it is written in your study text. But there's a lot of marks available for you explaining the way you understand absorption costing. Obviously, it has to be comprehensive, and the facts have to be correct. You can't say, well, absorption costing is about valuing our inventory at variable cost, because then you're mixing your drinks between marginal costing and absorption costing. So you need to understand the differences, explain what the model is in your own words. If you focus a lot on explaining and doing things in your own words, that's where a lot of the marks are going to come from, as opposed to you trying to remember keywords from the study text or remember paragraphs from the study text, because the examiners don't really get impressed by that. We'll see that as we go through some of the feedback accordingly. Let's take a few questions. Okay, cool. So got that from Ms. Piwe. Cool. And Nash has decided that it's time for him to go make his breakfast. The length of the exam is 180 minutes, computer-based exam. So you're going to be obviously typing on a similar to Word kind of format platform, which I'll demonstrate to you in a minute. The exam will take 3 hours. It tends to be broken down into 4 tasks or 4 longer kind of questions. And each task takes about 45 minutes. So if you take 45 minutes by 4, it should get you to 180 minutes. We use and I use specifically 180 minutes to get you a little bit concerned. So, because 180 sounds a whole lot more than 3 hours, but actually 180 minutes is 3 hours. You need to get into that space where you can type for 3 hours with relatively no breaks in between. Because remember, during the exam, that's what you're going to be expected to do, to type for 3 hours straight. Yes, you're going to spend some time thinking, you're going to spend some time reading, but majority of your time is going to be spent on typing your answers out. And I think that's something that you need to incorporate into your preparation as soon as possible. Obviously, I'll give you a few tasks to do today, so that you kind of understand what is expected of you. Okay, once you obviously finished with the exam, submit, and on the 6th of January, you'll get a score. For you to pass this exam, that score needs to read anything 80 or above for you to have passed the exam, excuse me. If you fall less than 80, obviously that would equate to a fail. And it's not nice. Majority of the people I know really tends to fall around the 80. So 77, 76, 78. I saw a note this morning. Somebody said, I got 77, bloody linear programming, which means that person went to the exam knowing that one of the shortcomings or one of the areas of weaknesses was actually linear programming. And obviously it was in the exam, and for obvious reasons, they would have lost marks there. And that's something you cannot really do. I normally say, instead of being an